We had 18 months to develop a car.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another insightful episode of my educational series. This week, I am bringing you an engineer with over 15 years of industry experience. Welcome, Mr. Michael Norrington, Programme Manager for McLaren, and specifically Programme Manager for the McLaren Artura, which marks the company's 2023 entry-level supercar, which is packing a hybrid powertrain, which in itself marks a significant change in direction for the British automaker. Mr. Norrington has over a decade of experience within McLaren and has also served as the program manager for the Super Series, the McLaren GT, the Sports Series, and was also a powertrain project leader. This interview dives into the reality of program management principles within McLaren, but is mainly the blueprint of Mr. Norrington's 15-plus year professional career. So basically offers insights into how he's strategizing, how he's establishing pillars, effective communication pillars within his teams to make them efficient. What are his team leading principles and his beliefs into achieving product success and client satisfaction in the end? That advice is offered under the umbrella of offering basically a roadmap, a guide map, to the young aspiring engineers who wish to enter the industry. Thank you, Mr. Norrington, for allocating your valuable time, truly valuable time, to talk to me, reflect upon your journey, share your thoughts, expertise, and advice, all to inspire and educate myself and the young generation of upcoming engineers. Enjoy the interview. So my first question, as I said, a lot of us engineers, we got into engineering because we're extremely curious about the world around us. And as I saw in your profile that you specialized in motorcycle engineering and design, why did you want to go into that direction initially? What drew you into that?
It's a really good question. And actually, when I was coming at the end of school, I really didn't know what to do. You know, I think I did science, maths, and business economics at my A level. And I think I applied to maybe 4 or 5 universities, and all of them were business studies. My oldest sister, she did business studies at university, 4 or 5 years ahead of me. And I really just assumed that, that seemed like a good idea and I'd do that. But, at the time, 15, 16, I started riding motorcycles as a form of transport. And, I was always quite mechanically minded, building Lego and all that kind of stuff, helping my dad in the garage. And actually it was a friend of mine, a family friend of mine, just said to me, why don't you study engineering? You like motorbikes, why don't you study engineering? And suddenly I then Googled, can I do a degree in motorcycle engineering? And it just so happened that there was in Kingston University. It was the only course in the country. And I applied and I got in, and that just started it. It was a very odd one. It was no real life goal or professional goal. It was just, I enjoyed motorcycles. I wanted to go and get a degree in something. And playing with motorcycles seemed like more fun than business economics. So that's where I landed.
So you're one of these rare people who made a passion effectively their job, their education first, and then their job, because you wanted into triumph.
Yeah, I think so. And I think being able to go and do motorcycle engineering was fantastic. a discipline in engineering which was a good balance between sort of some hands-on activity, still a challenge from an academic sense, but it wasn't quite as heavy as, say, aerospace, aeronautical, which, you know, really heavy on the maths front and stuff like that, which wasn't my, you know, most favored subjects. You know, I don't mind doing them. I'm capable of real world dynamics, things like that. So yeah, that's where I landed. And it's funny, as you develop, you do less and less. You know, I don't do motorcycles anymore, and I'm very much not hands-on in my current role, but it was a fantastic way to start off when you've got that opportunity for passion. Yeah, I was very fortunate.
So, what lessons did you extract from your first role in Triumph Motorcycles? Because I'm sure you extracted the skill set naturally. This will happen in 5.5 years. What about
Yeah,
people
yeah,
skills
absolutely.
that you
So,
extracted?
yeah, I was very lucky. I did a 4-year placement degree. So my placement year was with Triumph in the Midlands, and then it was great to have them offer me a job for when I graduated. So that took away the stress of my final year, which is, you know, for anyone who can get that opportunity, I would say go for it. I think a year in, although it, you know, your graduation and maybe your step into full-time work is delayed a year, I think that opportunity to break from the university, you know, ecosystem and go and work in a company, get some experience, is fantastic, and it makes your final year, in my opinion, so much easier, because, you know, you've suddenly built yourself up as a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5 working ethos, as opposed to, you know, maybe your first couple of years of university, which are a bit more ad hoc. And I think it sets you up for a really successful final year. But in terms of, you know, what skills did they give me? I was very lucky with Triumph being a quite small company, and, you know, an engineering team to deliver a motorcycle was maybe 8 to 10 people on the chassis side and 8 to 10 people on the powertrain side. You really got an opportunity to work across multiple components and processes, manufacturing methods. So, you know, I think I did a fuel tank for the Speed 1050, as well as the seat and the bodywork. So that involved, you know, foam moldings, plastic injection moldings, deep draw steel pressings, pipes and hoses. Fuel. So suddenly, you know, just in those first few years, covered a huge number of parts and processes, which was great. But I think I remember really the first thing that it imparted on me was how little I knew. You know, you come out of university with a degree thinking that you're set and you're a rounded engineer. And the first thing I learned was I really didn't know anything, you know, because walking into an office with people that had been in the industry designing motorcycles for 10, 20, 30 years, it was just a really sobering experience, but fantastic nonetheless, because you realize very quickly that the people that surround you are really the people that you're going to learn from and build your career on. The things you learn at university, in my opinion, are great, and they give you the grounding, they give you the first principles, but really it teaches you how to learn. And that was definitely the first thing that I learned going into my engineering career.
And that's the meaning of these interviews as well. That's exactly what I'm trying to extract. Was that the case with McLaren as well? Did you feel the same sense of, I don't know so much, when you entered the role in 2013, your first role in McLaren?
Yeah, so my move to McLaren was an interesting one. I think it was primarily for personal reasons. I wanted to live in the southeast, or I'd been told by my wife to move to the southeast, shall we say, as we were long distance at the time. And just very fortunate that a colleague of mine from Triumph had moved to McLaren a year or so earlier, and a role came up for a senior project engineer, fuel systems. So it was great to join McLaren. Fuel systems at McLaren meant something very different to a fuel tank on a motorcycle. You know, it's a non-visible part. It's got loads more things that you have to think about in terms of evaporative emissions and rollover performance and stuff like that. Crash performance, which, you know, just doesn't include. But I think for me, it was you come out, for me, I came out of university, spent, a good number of years at Triumph Motorcycles, and their design processes, release processes, are fantastic. I still look back on those days, and the robustness they put into their designs and their sign-offs is incredible. But it wasn't an OEM, it hadn't been built from the automotive industry, and joining McLaren, it had a huge number of people from the likes of Ferrari, from Lotus, Ford, Honda, these big OEM companies that have been around for decades and have built tools and processes over such a long period of time. And of course, McLaren, as it developed into a car company, had adopted a number of these kind of industry standard items, risk assessment tools, DFMEAs and tech specs, DVP, design validation processes. And it was fantastic to suddenly just be immersed into this automotive OEM process world, and take my experience from Triumph and the kind of attention to detail and robustness in design, and then combine it with these tools and processes that I'd never had at my fingertips before, to really kind of structure helped me round out my ability to take a component design from start to finish and be comfortable that kind of all the boxes had been ticked ahead of receiving those first parts.
And in the same line, throughout these 10 years, you just closed on 10 years in McLaren. In Triumph, you said you saw almost all the products, so you had the full product view. And I think that it's the same case with McLaren as well. You worked on the BP 23, which is the Speedtail, if I'm not mistaken, the McLaren GT, the Super Series, and most recently the Artura. So you've seen everything. And what I want to, maybe not everything, but the higher echelon, the elite series of McLaren. Is it desirable for an intern who enters a company, not necessarily McLaren, to want to see the full products? Or is it better for them to specialize on a specific product, at least for 3-4 years, and then move on to something different?
I think this is probably going to be quite divisive. I think people have different opinions on this. From my side, and certainly within McLaren, we do give a lot of weight in our program management team and department to people having technical backgrounds. So in a lot of in some industries, some companies within automotive, program managers are pure program managers and a kind of high level timing, cost, controllers and governance, and there's absolutely space for that in any industry, in any company. But in McLaren, we are more technical or engineering program managers, so there's a huge weight in understanding the technical challenges and being able to give guidance as well as your chief engineer. So for me personally, I think I kind of did specialize in a number of components, especially fuel systems, throughout my early career at McLaren, and then into delivering fuel cooling and HVAC systems with a team. And that's quite a specialized subject, and I think for me it gave a really good basis to then make a decision as to whether I continued down the technical route and technical leadership of a department, chassis integration or powertrain or something like that, or move into the program management side. And for me, I made that decision kind of naturally. It was something that I had an opportunity to be the project lead for the Speedtail powertrain. So although still technical, there was much more project management in terms of delivery of the project, and then from that developed into the McLaren GT whole vehicle project management side, and that came naturally to me. And I think many people will find that over the course of their careers, some of the things, I think the majority of people will find that naturally they will just move towards one side or the other. But I would absolutely always say that me, engineering, getting at least a reasonable number of years under your belt in a technical role is key. It gives you that grounding, and I think a level of authority when you become, program person, that you're not just looking at, spreadsheets and timing, that you are capable and have the aptitude to challenge people when they present you with technical problems.
And that authority, I'm certain, comes with huge responsibility. And I want to go to your final, latest, basically, program that we're managing, the Artura. And it's the first V6 that McLaren has put out. It's one of the first hybrid cars of the new era. It's a very brand new era, basically, for McLaren. So my question is going to be both technical and people-based. So how do you effectively lead the team, and which were the practical complications or challenges, per se, for the project?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I joined the Artura program underneath the program director, a really experienced member of the McLaren team. And I think from a people side, I've done direct management of a team, when I've led systems teams, and now more recently as a program manager, it's a very different experience and a very different set of tools that need to be utilized to lead that team, because not a single person in McLaren directly reports into me. So I have no control on, as such, or direct control on people's salary or pay or performance ratings or anything like that. So of course, there's several program managers at McLaren, all with their own programs to deliver. So there are many of me chasing the same cooling engineer or the same headlight engineer for delivery of their components. So I think at that instance, it's about trying to ensure everyone need. And I think that's for me, leading a team of people can only be effective and of course everyone wants to achieve their KPIs and their objectives that their direct management set them, and that's really important, but it's about getting people to maybe take a step back from those key metrics and objectives and remember that it's a car that we want to deliver, and it's a product, and this product brings joy. Yeah, we're toy makers. I don't want to belittle what we do, but essentially, the people at McLaren are toy makers. We just make really advanced, incredibly fun toys for people with the disposable income to enjoy them. And I think when you see some of the customers get out of one of our products for the first time, you get a better understanding of kind of that statement, because there's genuine, genuine joy that is on their face, and it's hard to explain to a few people. I have friends and family, and they understand that I work for McLaren and I help deliver supercars, and I try to explain to them quite how capable a £300,000 765 or whatever is. And people think, oh, well, I've been in a fast car before, I've been in a BMW M3 or something like that. And it's trying to explain to them that the performance gap between, a Nissan Leaf and an M3 is really what we're talking about in terms of an M3 to a McLaren. It's and when people do get to experience that, when I have an opportunity to take people out, it's amazing to be part of that experience, because that's why we do it. And so that's from a people leadership, I think it's about that common goal, as I say, to come back around to that. It's difficult. From a technical challenge, it's well known in the press that the McLaren Artura has been a challenge to get to market, as have manufacturers suffered across the board, not only because of COVID, but semiconductor shortages and things like that. But I think for me, Artura is a ground-up vehicle for McLaren. It's the first time really we've done it to this level, having essentially be a fairly junior company compared to some of the other OEMs that people might compare us to. So when you look at a new architecture, a new powertrain, a new tub, a new body, of course, that technical challenge is to make sure that the maturity of all of those systems and subsystems all come together at the same time. And that is a challenge that, can't be underestimated. You can't sign off the vehicle architecture if the powertrain isn't performing, and you're not running at full power. You can't prove out your brake cooling performance, again, if your powertrain's not providing the power to hit your lap times. So I think from a technical challenge, when you introduce multiple large-scale systems at the same time, it's getting them to the right maturity to be able to sign off the car, and its full capability. Otherwise, you're doing testing multiple times.
That dichotomy of professionalism, which is much needed, and fun within the company, I think it's the ultimate combination for someone who loves engineering, not just cars, but engineering in general. I believe in even engineers who are maybe electrical engineers, and they don't necessarily love the body proportions, seeing the final product. They love their specialized part. They will appreciate that passion. I thoroughly do. Mr. Norrington, what can I say? I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm very conscious of time as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Your advice is invaluable. For someone who's just getting started, it's invaluable advice. It combines both elements of loving your job and being extremely good at it, which I think it's the ultimate combination. So,
absolutely. And to finish, a quote that really stuck with me in my early career at McLaren was from Mike Flewitt, our one of our previous CEOs. And somebody asked him about how he'd been so successful in his career. He'd got to the top, right? CEO of McLaren. Mm-hmm. Many people can only aspire to that. And they said, how did you manage your career? How did you work your way up? And he said, and it really has stuck with me. He said he didn't manage his career. He ensured that he enjoyed the roles he was doing. And because he enjoyed the role he was doing, he did it very, very well. And because he did it very well, he progressed. And I think, from my side, I think it has stuck with me. And I hope, young aspiring engineers now remember that, a job is not just about the salary that comes with it. It's easy to chase a number, especially in such a fluid working, employment market. But find a job you love doing. And if you love doing it, you'll do it well. And if you do it well, you'll progress. And before you know it, you'll hit your aspirations without what considers to be a huge amount of effort. That's probably my main comment, I think.
I know this is not an advertisement for McLaren, but the environment, the way you describe it, it's very authentic, very pure. And I really aspire to gain that momentum and that passion for something, to love something so much. I have to go and look into McLaren roles. Maybe that's the next thing. So, Mr. Norrington, I want to thank you sincerely for allocating your valuable time talking to me and hopefully to thousands of other students.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, George, and I wish you all the best.
Absolutely. Likewise. Have a beautiful day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.